The Severn and Wye Railway came under increasing pressure to improve the track, and in 1868 it changed the width from the 3 feet 6 inches of the tramway to the 7-foot broad gauge that was in use on the South Wales Railway's Gloucester to Cardiff main line. It took time and money to transfer goods once they had reached Lydney Junction to freight trucks on the broad gauge. As was the case for a considerable number of branch lines, broad gauge was short-lived as a transport system because an Act of Parliament was passed to standardise track width throughout the country. The Great Western Railway, which was responsible for the majority of rail transport in the South West and Wales, had hired Isambard Kingdom Brunel as chief engineer, and when he laid his track he chose a 7-foot width rather than emulating Stephenson's 4-foot 8-inch narrow gauge, which was used predominantly throughout the rest of the country. Unfortunately for Brunel, and also the Severn and Wye Railway, Parliament chose Stephenson's width as the new standard gauge, which is still in use today. Consequently, by 1875, the Severn and Wye was compelled to abandon broad gauge after 7 short years and convert to standard gauge, so as to align itself with the rest of Great Britain. Up until this point, the railway had served the industrial community, and there were a great many collieries linked by the Severn and Wye Railway. There was the Princess Royal Colliery, Howbeach, New Fancy, Navigation and Fox's Bridge, to name but a few, with one of the most significant collieries being at Norchard, where the steam centre is today. This postcard, again dating from about 1912, shows the scale of the coal workings at that time. Over the centuries, there'd been a great many disputes about coal in the Norchard area, as it stands on the boundary of the Forest of Dean, and the landowners who had been granted the mineral rights fought hard to stop the free miners working the seams, particularly as there were rich iron ore deposits to be found as well. By 1896, Norchard had become home to the Park Iron Ore and Coal Company, which was how the area was operated until 1911, when Charles Bathurst, later Viscount Bledisloe of Lydney Park, formed the Park Colliery Company Co. Limited. Coal was obviously a major source of power in the forest, but as early as 1890, a new source of energy was being experimented with in manufacturing: electricity. At the Norchard site, there was both a ready supply of coal and a first-class water feed from the River Lyd, which was boosted by large quantities of additional water pumped from the forest mines. It was therefore an ideal position for generating electricity, and by the 18th of June 1923, the West Gloucestershire Power Company Limited became operational from a power station which stood where the Dean Forest Railway car park is today. This really was a tremendous achievement, as it only took 6 months to excavate the site and build the structure. Not only did the power station supply all the needs of the forest area, there was sufficient energy to ship electricity by means of a submarine cable across the River Severn to the Stroud Valley. One interesting byproduct of the power station was ash, which proved very useful during the Second World War, when the American Air Force constructed a number of bases in Gloucestershire. The ash was transferred from Lydney all over the country for use in airfield construction. The power station closed in 1966, and was demolished in the winter of 68 and 69. Fortunately, this archive postcard is an accurate record of what the power station looked like, but the impressive pylons in today's car park mark the spot. In 1875, the same year that the Severn and Wye switched to standard gauge, a passenger service commenced on the line. A terminus adjacent to the South Wales railway station at Lydney Junction joined with Lydney Town, Whitecroft, Parkend and Cinderford, which in turn connected with the Great Western Railway at Lydbrook Junction on the Ross to Monmouth line, with a passenger service also on the Colford branch line. The railway was often responsible for some incredible architecture and engineering, and at Lydbrook there was a magnificent viaduct which didn't cross a river as might have been expected at first glance, but spanned the town instead. The archive shop has again been able to supply a photograph of Lydbrook Viaduct, because sadly it was demolished on the 3rd of October 1965 despite strenuous efforts to save it. The other major construction on the Severn and Wye was a railway bridge that crossed the River Severn. It was built by an independent company to give improved access to the outlets for forest coal, opening on the 17th of October 1879. Later in the year, the two firms amalgamated to form the Severn and Wye and Severn Bridge Railway Company, which provided both a freight and passenger service to Berkeley Road Station on the other side of the river, where it connected with the Gloucester to Bristol branch of the Midland Railway. Soon after the bridge's completion in 1890, the conglomerate experienced severe financial difficulties as recession struck the forest coal trade. The problem was solved when the line was taken over jointly by the Midland and Great Western Railways, which is why many of the signs seen on the Dean Forest Railway today show the names of both companies. Locally, however, the line was better known as the Severn and Wye Joint. The selection of archive pictures show views of the Severn Railway Bridge from both sides of the river, because it no longer stands, having been superseded by two new Severn bridges which are both road crossings. There were plans to strengthen the old bridge and convert it for road and rail use, but on the 25th of October 1960, a thick fog caused two tankers to collide on the river, causing them to be driven by the strong tide into the bridge, bringing down two of the piers, causing severe damage. It was never repaired and was demolished shortly afterwards. This, of course, put a halt to a direct service between Lydney Junction and Berkeley Road, and combined with the fact that the Lydney, Cinderford and Lydbrook route had been closed to passenger traffic since 1929, except for football and seaside excursions, which finally concluded in the 1950s, the accident caused the effective end of what remained of the forest railways. Many branch lines saw a reduction in service when nationalisation swept through the railway system on the 1st of January 1948. British Railways took on the Severn and Wye as part of the Western region. Eventually, through the 50s and 60s, as the mines went into further decline, the track was successfully reduced until the only remaining section in use was between Lydney and Parkend. Despite the formation of the Dean Forest Railway as a preservation society in 1970, British Rail chose to hedge their bets, keeping the line operational just in case open cast mine traffic had a resurgence. It sadly did not, and the last regular freight service ran on the 7th of May 1976, and British Rail finally relinquished its interest in 1980. After careful negotiation, 5 years on from opening the Dean Forest Railway to the public in 1978, a contract was signed for the purchase of the Lydney to Parkend line in 1983.